We begin this bulletin with breaking news from Bangladesh that marks the end of an era in South Asian politics. Bangladesh's former Prime Minister Khaleda Zia, chairperson of the BNP, has passed away early this morning at 6 a.m. And her passing comes at a politically sensitive moment for Bangladesh, months ahead of a national election that is already marred by absolute unrest that's brewing in the neighborhood. The BNP chairperson, Khaleda Zia, has died. She passed away early this morning at 6 a.m. Our team of reporters are tracking the latest updates from Bangladesh for us and the BNP's official response currently. But the end of an era in South Asian politics, as Bangladesh's former Prime Minister Khaleda Zia, chairperson of the BNP, has passed away early this morning at 6 a.m. As I mentioned, her passing comes at a politically sensitive moment for Bangladesh, months ahead of a national election already marred by tensions and unrest. My colleagues Disha Bagchi and Saurabh are tracking the latest developments for us. Let's get in a word from Disha Bagchi, who joins us from the newsroom first. Disha, what are the latest details coming in from Bangladesh? We have an official confirmation, I'm given to understand.
Yes, the BNP on a Facebook post announced the tragic news of the death of BNP chairperson as well as former Bangladesh Prime Minister Khaleda Zia, and the fact that she passed away at 6 a.m. Local time in Bangladesh, which would be roughly half an hour ago. Now, to give some context to our viewers, the former Prime Minister Zia was in critical condition since yesterday. But has been sick for the last year. She was in fact in London for treatment and then returned to Bangladesh. She was actually supposed to go back to London for treatment, but due to her very critical condition, she could not make that visit. And this tragic news of her death comes just days after her son, Tarique Rehman, returned to Bangladesh after 17 years. So this really, even as you mentioned, this could be very much the turning point in the upcoming Bangladesh elections, and comes at a time when Bangladesh itself is facing a lot of turmoil in its political landscape, in a narrowing political landscape. So now the tragic death of Khaleda Zia at the age of 80 is definitely going to be a very sad day for Bangladesh, as well as a turning point. It could be a turning point in the upcoming Bangladesh elections. We're yet to hear from her son Tarique Rehman. That is something that we're likely to expect in the next couple of hours. But this is what we have, the latest, that BNP has announced the tragic death of Khaleda Zia, who's passed away at the age of 80.
With us as I get in a word from Saurabh as well. Saurabh, what more can you tell us about the circumstances of Khaleda Zia's death and her medical condition leading up to this morning?
Well, she'd been critically unwell for a while now. In fact, the problem is that they had initially planned to take her abroad for London, and even an air ambulance was arranged. But given her precarious health condition, she couldn't fly out. And in fact, those plans had to be put on hold, and she continued treatment at a private hospital in Dhaka. Now, recently, just a few weeks ago, she was also given the SS protection, which is, of course, the protection given to very important people in Bangladesh. And also, her life, her story is one that is very, very inspirational. Because remember, while she's had a political career that spans decades. She came into politics at a time when, President Zia was assassinated. Her husband was assassinated. Then, of course, in several occasions, she also fought for democracy in Bangladesh. She fought for, she fought against military rule. So all of those things are attributed to her, and she's in that league of women prime ministers from South Asia, in that league of Benazir Bhutto, in that league of Siribabu Bananake, and so many others, Indira Gandhi. South Asia has had some, very formidable women in politics, and Begum Khaleda Zia is counted as among them. And therefore, her legacy in the political landscape of Bangladesh is something that's very, very important. She's seen struggle. She's seen, all kinds of political struggles, including being jailed. her husband being assassinated, all of that. It's the violent politics that has, often been witnessed in Bangladesh. If there's someone who's known pain and suffering because of politics, it's Khaleda Zia, Begum Khaleda Zia, who also was Bangladesh's first female prime minister.
Saurabh, we'll continue to track the latest reactions and tributes coming in. Aditya Raj Kaul is also with us this morning with a quick update. Bangladesh's former Prime Minister Khaleda Zia, chairperson of the BNP, has passed away early this morning at 6 a.m. and her passing comes at a politically sensitive moment for Bangladesh. Aditya, help our viewers understand Khaleda Zia's role in shaping modern Bangladesh and the legacy that she leaves behind.
Well, firstly, we can confirm that Khaleda Zia was unwell for quite some time, last few years in fact, and over the last few weeks, her situation was deemed to be very critical. In fact, NDTV last night had reported that her condition had turned extremely critical, and that's when the family member had rushed to the hospital, including Tarique Rehman, her son himself. She was at the Evercare hospital in Dhaka, where she was in the intensive care. She was on a life support system. She passed away at 6 a.m. That's what we are learning at the age of 80. Khaleda Zia certainly had an incredible role in the politics and the governance of Bangladesh in the last many decades. She was, of course, the former Prime Minister of Bangladesh and currently the chairperson of the BNP, one of the leading political parties, and of course a great opposition leader to Sheikh Hasina, the former Prime Minister herself. And of course, Yunus might be the interim government chief advisor right now, but two of the key people who have shaped the future of Bangladesh in many ways have been Sheikh Hasina and, Khaleda Zia. In fact, Tarique Rehman, her son, had been in exile for over 17 years, and just about almost a week ago, Tarique Rehman had returned. And the first thing that he did, after returning was, in fact, to go to the hospital and meet his mother, and in fact had been going there almost every day. This is, of course, a big setback to the politics and the governance structure in Bangladesh, because there will be a huge vacuum that, of course, Tarique Rehman will have to fill. These are huge, a big gap that needs to be filled, certainly. And of course, Tarique Rehman will be taking the legacy forward, and of course, the political future of the BNP future forward as well. But at this particular time, it also reminds me, even though there's been stiff opposition between Sheikh Hasina and, of course, Begum Khaleda Zia, there was a WikiLeaks.
Hold that thought for a moment, please. I sincerely apologize. We've got AKM Wahiduzzaman joining us, the Information and Technology Affairs Secretary of the BNP. Thank you so much for making time for us on NDTV. Really, it's being considered the end of an era for South Asian politics. Your first thoughts that Khaleda Zia has passed away this morning at 6 a.m.
Yes, it is true. BNP chairperson and former Prime Minister Begum Khaleda Zia passed away today at 6 a.m. Bangladesh time, just after early morning prayers. She always wished to pass away in her own country, and when last time she was admitted in the hospital on 23rd December, she refused to go to abroad for advanced treatment, and she always wished to pass away in her own country, and that was her prayer to the Creator, and that happened to the morning, and we mourn, and we pray for her departed soul, and we request everybody to pray for her departed soul. That's it. Thank you.
Indeed. Sir, as we know, Begum Khaleda Zia was not just a former Prime Minister, but also a towering figure in Bangladeshi politics. Tell us, how do you see the nation remembering her today?
Look, throughout her political life, she was termed as uncompromising leader. She didn't compromise at all with any political situation. That's what we saw her from early days of her politics. She never compromised with the military-backed administrator, dictator like Ershad. She led uprising against Ershad, and she succeeded. And then in 1991, after winning the election, BNP formed government second term. And after that, she became the iconic figure of Bangladesh.
Right.
And yes, there will be a huge political vacuum, but we believe that our acting chairman, Mr. Tarique Rehman, he's capable of taking the responsibility, and
Okay.
we are hopeful. We are hopeful that things will be okay, but definitely will miss her. Bangladesh will miss her, and I think the whole world will miss her.
Sir, just as we wrap, on a personal level, what is the one thing about Begum Zia as a leader or as a woman in power that you believe people never fully understood or appreciated?
Her softness, her simplicity. She only had a few saris, and she, as I personally know her, I used to know her. She was very simple, very humble, very polite.
Mr. Wahiduzzaman, thank you so much for joining us at this tough time. Really appreciate your
Thank
thoughts.
you very much. Thank
We'll
you.
stay in touch with you. That was AKM Wahiduzzaman, the Information and Technology Affairs Secretary of the BNP. Currently, we have Disha Bagchi and Saurabh Gupta tracking the latest developments from the neighborhood for us, as Khaleda Zia's passing comes at a politically sensitive moment for Bangladesh. The elections are lined up in February in just about 2 months. Saurabh, tell us, how did her political career contrast with Sheikh Hasina's, particularly during the 1991-2006 period?
So, Bangladesh politics largely has been an electoral battle between Sheikh Hasina and Begum Khaleda Zia, two women leading two parties right from its independence. And these are the two mainstream political parties that have largely been on the front and center of Bangladesh politics. Yes, there have been other forces that have had power. For example, the radical Islamist Jamaat-e Islami or other parties. But largely the power in the country has been shared at different times between these two parties, where it's either been the BNP or the Awami League, or in between, there have been interim governments or military rule. But largely it's been Begum Khaleda Zia and Sheikh Hasina, especially in the last 2 decades. And Begum Khaleda Zia's politics is something that obviously in Bangladesh is looked at with a lot of hope and a lot of gratitude, because while India and Bangladesh have had its share of issues, even under Begum Khaleda Zia, the relationship was, of course, there were struggles, there were issues, but it wasn't as bad as perhaps it's now. And also, we know is that Begum Khaleda Zia was one person who actually, in her tenure, during her tenure, also made a visit to India, an official visit to India. Right. And she met with a lot of people during that visit. And her the whole contribution to Bangladesh politics is something that obviously is, going to be remembered for a long, long time. Now, Begum Khaleda Zia, of course, is someone who has being Prime Minister for more than one term. She's always been a force to reckon with in Bangladesh politics, and in fact, she became Prime Minister thrice. Her political career is, of course, a tale of grit amidst great personal and political catastrophes. Like I said, she's one of the leading figures in a league of women prime ministers in South Asia like Indira Gandhi, Benazir Bhutto, Sirimavo Bandaranaike, Chandrika Kumaratunga, Sushila Karki, and of course her arch rival Sheikh Hasina. Her failing health recently, of course, had been a concern for world leaders, including Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who had, said in a social media post on X that he was deeply concerned to learn about the health of Begum Khaleda Zia, who's contributed to Bangladesh's public life for many years.